Bum, 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 bum. All right. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. I hope you all had a great Mother's Day yesterday. We certainly tried to, and I hope you mommies felt appreciated and enjoyed your day and relaxed. All right. We didn't have book club yesterday because of it. All right. So don't forget that it is Nations and Identities, Vincent Pecora. We may try to make this up. I'm going to post this on Locals and see what you guys think because we're making a lot of good time. But it's that season. We had Easter, Mother's Day, some other stuff going on, even scheduling conflicts. So might try to do that sometime this week if possible. I think that would be good. But if not, and we're going to wind up losing more people than we would normally, then we'll pass on it. But there it is. Anyway, the links to the public polling project are down below. Don't forget, share them far and wide, contribute if you can. The best place to follow us, as always, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, first and foremost, let's go to the chart on Real Clear Politics for a second. That is the table, actually, not the chart. We will look at the chart in a second. I think it is fairly obvious that we were once again ahead of the curve. I think that coming in at +1 when others came in ballpark in the area of like, plus, so you got Rasmussen now +6. Maybe they're right. Maybe they are. But there's also the others that are, somewhere in the neighborhood of, even less negative if they were some of the polls that were always, I think, ridiculously negative compared to the pollsters who got it right. So I think we are seeing, I think it's fairly obvious that we are seeing a movement back to Trump's approval. I think that's because some of this stuff isn't coming to fruition. Okay. And the economy, it did not fall as much as people expected it to. I think reality always wins. We've talked about this a lot. I think reality always wins. I think you can only keep up the fear tactics so long before people start to conclude that the fear was maybe a little bit unjustified. There's a lot of big news this week, a lot of big news this weekend. And we could go through some of the videos, in fact, that Real Clear Politics themselves clip from the Sunday shows. But I think that I'm going to be a little bit critical today of the Trump administration from doing what I feel is stepping on their own message. Okay, that's what I felt like they did. All right. So in any event, here we have the 100. If you ever doubted what I was telling you about the 100-day narrative polling, which is just totally bogus, it's propaganda. If you ever had any doubt that I was right, look at this. Look at this. I've told you guys this over and over again. Public opinion does not change like this. Dramatic week to week, 10, 12 point swings. That is a load of horse, you know what. Also, looking just at our own poll that we did a week after this thing widened a gulf the size of the Gulf of America, we did not see a declining response rate among Republicans and a rising one among Democrats any more outside of what we have seen in the past and what is normal within normal ranges. And it's true, by the way, Democrats continue to take polls at higher rates than Republicans. There are, however, fewer Democrats now as far as self-identification. There isn't enough of a response bias to justify what you're seeing here on your screen. What happened? I think what happened is very obvious. Big data poll, Qantas, hell, even some of these other polls are shifting back. Remington, Rasmussen now going to +6. It's like the charade's, they had their narrative game and the charade's over. And it's going to be very difficult for them to keep this charade up. Like normally, in normal times, they would do this crap, pull this scam, and then they would try for as long as they could to keep this spread. They would milk it. But they can't milk it now because they can't pop out these spreads when there are other pollsters who did better than they did during the last several elections doing the same. Which, by the way, is why they needed an op, like a firm, for instance, that may have stayed marginally to the left of us, even though they were wrong, mirrored the shit out of what we were doing and what others were doing that have been right when others have been wrong. Then erroneously claim they're the most accurate pollster out there. Because when they're also thrown into the mix, it's easier for them to justify this and say, look, no, he is negative. That particular pollster, by the way, was always negative on Trump, even when he was +14 to 18 approve. It's an obvious scam. Now we have what? What changed? What coverage changed? What justifies the increase in his approval, although more marginal than the decline in his disapproval? What changed? Even Decision Desk, by the way, their own average shows the same thing. And then if you are on the Decision Desk mailing list, you would have read now 2 separate articles about how this blip appears to have been very weird and is now headed back to a more favorable trend for Trump. Because I got to tell you, it sure as hell isn't Trump's messaging. It's not the White House's messaging doing it. I don't think they're doing a good job at all. I think they're doing an awful job, in fact, which I'll get into shortly. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. That was a narrative scam. That's what the industry's been reduced to. For those of you who have followed me for years, you know that I have not taken this tone and tenor when it comes to the industry. I've always tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. They don't deserve it anymore. They are clearly just publishing fudged numbers for stories, which is why, let's go back to it real quick and we'll highlight some of them. When was the last time they put out one? I don't think they have in a while, but you had, I'm not seeing it is Morning Consult that does the polling for them, but I'm not seeing Bloomberg sponsoring anything unless I'm missing it here, but we're missing it. Cook would be another one, but all of these people who withheld, certainly Ann Seltzer, who withheld a poll for over a month, only to drop the results 2 weeks, 10 days, 14 days later so that they could get a story out of it. Now, that it doesn't matter anymore, but that's what they did before the election. Then they go on to blow the election. All of these guys. Almost all of them. And now we're supposed to care what they think? They got their garbage narrative. Then there are other voices in the mix that they just can't ignore. And they're forced to herd back. That's sad, folks, but that's what's happening here. Okay? It's sad. It's pathetic, but it's so obvious. And it's even more obvious, by the way, if you take it and you put it on either a bubble or a scatter plot. Because then you can see where beyond the average, where the individual polls came in to make this trend. It's outrageous. Outrageous. All right. Moving on. And by the way, it's not just that. The generic ballad, we're seeing it with everything. Right track, wrong track, you name it. All right. And actually, do we have, well, we'd have to go back. But whatever, we could do it. But right track, wrong track, that's weird. That's strange. All right. All right, but we can leave that up for now. Big news all weekend long. And I think that one story in particular was a completely unforced error that looks awful. That is stepping on all the good news. And I do put, by the way, the release of hostages in the good news category. There's a lot of positive news for the Trump administration over the weekend. Big things. And by the way, I would also put what's going on with China in that mix. By the way, the Chinese delegation just told the American delegation they did not respect Joe Biden. Could you imagine if the roles were reversed? How the media would just go 24/7, hard as can be at that story today? Not a peep. Outside of Besson himself doing an interview on, I believe, CNBC, where he said it. But that happened, and you're not hearing about it. That's huge. Something else happened, which I saw Barnes and Viva talking about. I was so stunned, I thought this was fake. I really did. Should we leave the Real Clear Politics up there for a second? I'll tell you, because I can see you guys are asking, what am I talking about? I'm talking about when it comes to what do I think you're stepping on. I'm talking about the plane, guys. I'm talking about the plane and Qatar. This is, I think, a case of everyone's too afraid of pissing off. So the president has nobody around him to prevent him from making a stupid mistake, which he then doubled down on Twitter a little bit ago, or Truth. It's not just Democrats. And actually, what am I talking about? Let me bring up the Truth post. I'll bring it up. Hold on. I had taken down Truth before, but I'll bring it up so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then we'll move on to a clip, which I just think is huge news and nobody's talking about. And I thought it was fake. I thought it was fake. And I'm thinking to myself, if you oppose Trump's order, and by order, I mean what Trump is trying to do. If you oppose his order, the reforms he's trying to make, the way he does things, whatever it may be, you can get away with anything. The media will cover anything up for you. They will bury anything. I just never thought this would be something that is just, there has to be a line where something is so bad. I don't even know what to call them. They're like a new protected class or something. They're like the Trump hater group is this protected class where the media, the entertainment industry, corporate America, because of course, corporate America has a cancellation culture as well. But you can do anything you want if you are a Trump critic. And even getting, I don't know, caught with a giant bag of blow won't get you a negative headline. It's incredible to me, especially when several of those people are opponents of how Donald Trump is trying to bring a resolution, an end to the Russo-Ukrainian war. In fact, two of them were major proponents of it to begin with. You protect a war machine, and it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you do. All right, but here's the unforced error I'm talking about. This is the stepping on the message part. So the fact that the Defense Department is getting a gift free of charge of a 747 aircraft to replace the 40-year-old Air Force One temporarily in a very public and transparent transaction so bothers the crooked Democrats that they insist we pay top dollar for the plane. Anybody can do that. The Dems are world-class losers. MAGA. I understand the point he's trying to make, but here's the point he is 100% missing. This looks like shit. This smells awful. It doesn't matter if there's not an official act connected with it. And let me tell you, let me give you, or I'll explain, all right? Let me mansplain for a second why everyone's focused on this. For years, I don't want to call them rogue, but overzealous prosecutors, especially partisan ones, would use bribery statutes to go after their political opponents or people they perceived to be their future political opponents. A perfect example of this, and one that the case law is relevant to, is the former governor of Virginia, Bob McDonnell. Obama had just won election in a landslide against John McCain. Democrats swept in the House and the Senate. They won districts and they won seats that they had no business winning. It was a blue wave of epic proportions. Yet a year later, after not even a year of taking office, Bob McDonnell goes on to trounce the Democratic opponent in a state that Barack Obama carried, being the first Democrat to carry it since the Civil Rights era. That was the state of Virginia, which Democrats always believed they could win. Going back to the 2004 election, John Kerry, the Kerry campaign, they thought they could carry Virginia. George Bush would go on to win it by 7 points. Barack Obama would be the first Democrat to do it because, of course, everything Republican turned to you know what after George W. Bush was done with the Republican Party. He destroyed the Republican Party. Destroyed it. Left it in pieces if it even was still a national force anymore, which I would argue it wasn't. Bob McDonnell even rocked it in Fairfax County. I kid you not. They were never worried about Mitt Romney in Barack Obama's reelection effort. They leaked a bunch of stories that said we're super worried about Mitt Romney because they wanted Mitt Romney. Because the team really felt that Mitt Romney was the only one who could not effectively prosecute the Obamacare argument against the president, which they worried about because they worried about it ginning up right-wing conservative Democrats, back then blue dog Democrats, and of course independents, because those numbers had turned very badly on Obama. Their goal was to run a vanilla, unexciting Republican against the president so the president could get his black base out and just outvote them. He knew he couldn't win the majority vote without it being a rather lower turnout election and just getting his base out in a big disadvantage, which they did. It was a D+5 electorate. Mitt Romney actually won independents by 7 points, but it wasn't enough because too many Democrats voted and too few Republicans and non-party affiliated voters did not. Because Mitt Romney, by the time they were done with him, was a poser. An Obamacare supporting poser who now is pretending like he doesn't support it, even though he was the template for it in the state of Massachusetts, and a vulture capitalist. They were truly concerned about two people. One, consequently, and you can read it in WikiLeaks, but one, consequently, was a guy named Donald Trump. Very worried about a guy named Donald Trump because they thought Donald Trump had celebrity appeal, even among rappers and rap music listeners, that they were really worried about what Donald Trump could do potentially with black men and some Hispanic, especially men, very worried about that. Of course, it took a while for Donald Trump to chisel away at those groups, but that thesis, that fear turned out to be a justified fear. The other person they were worried about was the Virginia governor, Bob McDonnell. And a certain prosecutor you may recognize comes along, prosecutes him on these very obscure bribery allegations over basically a watch in a car and some other stuff. Bob gets time, he gets sent away. His lawyers never stop though, and eventually his case goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court says, you know what? This has gone on too long. Prosecutors have been way too liberal or too loose with the statute. And there has to be a very clear act, official act in the office. Doesn't matter if somebody gives you, it's like a campaign contributor and he gives you a Rolex and a Ferrari. What did you do for him in return? Blurs the lines of gifts. What's a gift versus what's an actual bribe? That's why Pam Bondi and the DOJ penned a little legal analysis saying it's the position of the DOJ. This is not a bribe because President Trump didn't give anything to the government in Qatar. That sounds all very well and good. All these references to Bob McDonnell sound all well and good. Nobody knows who Bob McDonnell is anymore. Nobody understands the federal statute. It looks like shit. It looks awful. The United States does not need a gift like that. I understand Trump is all about saving money, and I know the mentality the man has. He doesn't even take a paycheck to do this. But there are myriad problems with this outside of the obvious, which Laura, by the way, brought up with Jack Posobiec. Her and Jack. There is no way that plane could be secure. I mean, just think about it. You might as well strip it down for parts because that's what it would take to make sure you sweep every area of a Boeing 747. That to me, it wasn't the obvious thing to me, but what a great point. So bravo to Laura and Jack. Secondly, is the obvious one. Optically, this looks horrible. The president, who ran against Joe Biden, by the way, constantly bringing up the quid pro quos with Joe Biden, Burisma. Joe Biden laundered your money to Eastern Ukraine in the shale deposits and the corrupt oligarchs in the energy sector over in Ukraine. He laundered your money over there and put it back, a nice chunk of it, in his own damn pocket. If he launders your money to Eastern Ukraine in exchange for getting, by the way, prosecutions dropped against his son, but then gets his son a cushy-ass job, and you require your son, and Joe Biden requires his son, let's just call it that, to kick back a certain percentage of what he gets from these deals he gets him, that's corruption. In many different ways. It's bribery. It's money laundering. So, I mean, honestly, you want to say things like, because I have myself, I said it to David Frum before. You want to say, like, look, if you're one of those people who sat there silently while the Bidens laundered billions with a B, billions of taxpayer dollars over to places like Ukraine, Romania, China, all to get back in the family's pockets, like Jim Biden and Hunter Biden and Joe himself. If you were quiet in the face of very clear corruption, because in this case, we did see very clear official acts in exchange for that money. Very clear. That money itself is an official act. And Joe Biden's son getting the job Burisma gave to Joe Biden is the bribe. This is easy. It gets even worse in China, which nobody talks about, but that gets even worse. As military application, it's even worse. Regardless of whether or not there's an official act in this case, I could fabricate one right now. It looks terrible. Listen, guys, if there's anyone smart enough around the president to know something like this was a horrible idea, it is not going to work long term. He's going to get in a lot of trouble before his term is up if they're too damn afraid of a certain gatekeeper to be able to tell him the truth. And if you're smart enough, and I know a lot of people listening right now know exactly who I'm talking about, this is your discipline. Because that's the whole selling point of this arrangement, isn't it? This is a more disciplined Trump administration. This is your discipline. I'll fabricate one right now. Donald Trump is getting ready to announce that the U.S. recognizes the Palestinian people. Palestinian statehood. It is an open secret that the leaders of Hamas do not live in the West Bank. They do not live in Gaza. They do not operate from Palestine. They are in places like Qatar. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's a simple argument to make and a compelling one. This was a dumb, unnecessary mistake that took away from an enormous amount of news that you saw throughout this weekend. In fact, give me 1 second. I write a list of them here. Huge, just absolutely huge. Pakistan and India, ceasefire. Putin, we're ready to sit down with Ukraine this week. By the way, if I was Putin, I wouldn't be so quick to make a deal. You're not, well, unless you understand, you're not getting back any territory in eastern Ukraine or what they really don't even consider to be Ukraine. You're not getting anything back. Not the Donbass, not nothing. And that's a problem because, of course, Western political leaders like Joe Biden really threw it all behind the energy sector in Ukraine. Obviously, this deal, or this, not deal, but the announcement of the parameters or of this understanding the U.S. and China, it's obviously huge. Hostages being released. Eden Alexander, he's the last one there. Enormously, all of them enormously popular. And by the way, no, I don't view the decision by Trump to reduce those tariffs. I don't view them to be a blink or a back down or whatever people want to call them. I don't. I don't. This is what Trump wanted, and it's like you can criticize Trump, and you could do it fairly, honestly, obvious, and there's no shortage of material to do it. But people who are saying that are just either they're going too far because they're not being honest, or they don't know Trump enough. And honestly, I don't know how you can at this point. This was always the place that Donald Trump wanted to end up before negotiations with the Chinese this week. This was always going to be the place. Those tariffs went out. They went out high, hot, and heavy. And then he made bilateral arrangements with other big players in order to isolate China. Meanwhile, all of these people were bitching about 30%. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. That's way too high. So he rolls it back right before the negotiations with the Chinese, who have major problems because of these tariffs. They got major problems to begin with, but these tariffs are absolutely doing their job. And they're unhappy. They're saying now he blinked. Which one is it? You know, were the tariffs too high and you wanted them to be a bit, if he's going to do it a little bit less? Is it that version of you, which was just like a week ago? Or is this the new you? The new real you? He blinked. Which one is it? He needed to separate China from the rest of the world. He did that. Of course, that was always his plan. Let's not act like the man is stupid. It's so ridiculous. It's honestly, Lord, it's so ridiculous that like people who are like half the people he has become in his life act like they know more than him and they're smarter than him. And they act like he's stupid and they talk like he's stupid. What have you done? Is your name written in gold on towers all over the place? Give me a break. And that's why they always find themselves losing against Trump, because Sun Tzu, homies, Sun Tzu. I mean, that's not, it's more than just Sun Tzu. It's like everyone who's not an idiot, don't underestimate your opponent. But they do it all the time. All right. Also, something that didn't make any news. I mean, you have this meeting in Kiev. You have French President Macron. You have the German advisor Merz sitting in the cabin. I don't think they realized the camera was on. I don't know. This is incredible to me. The adults in the room. Remember that, right? The adults in the room. These are the people who are supposed to be the adults. Trump is the unstable one. Trump is the irresponsible one. Just watch this. Unbelievably stunning.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France.
German bedroom, and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make a photo, and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Now they're getting ready. And there it is. Okay. There goes the snapshots. Just go back and listen. I want you to understand. You didn't see any pictures taken before. You didn't hear any clicking of the camera. Okay. Look at first. Look at him to the left. He's like, oh my God. And then you can see Macron swipe it away. Look, watch. I mean, it's very obvious. Look, watch him swipe it right now.
Yeah.
Or hiding it. Merz grabs the spoon. Macron grabs the bag. What is going on here? What is this? Yes, that's a spoon, Matt. And you're telling me Macron's not geeked out right now? It's a Kleenex. Give me a break. Does everybody eat their Kleenex with a spoon?
Thank you.
I mean, this would be huge news. Huge news. And of course, Macron is zooted. He's tweaking. It's obvious. Come on. Insult everybody's intelligence. These are the adults in the room. Truly, truly unbelievable. I mean, we got to take a break. Truly unbelievable. Look, speaking of your health, you still feeling like crap after the COVID vaccine? You're not alone. And new research backs it up. In a groundbreaking study, risk stratification for future cardiac arrest. After the jab, Dr. Peter McCullough highlights an alarming rise in sudden cardiac events among young and previously healthy individuals. His study found that tiny hidden patches of heart inflammation, often missed by doctors, could silently be building up, leading to sudden heart attacks during exercise or sleep. That's why the wellness company created the 3-in-1 Ultimate Spike Detox, crafted with 100% natural ingredients, specifically designed to help your body clear harmful spike proteins, reduce inflammation, and support heart health. Don't wait until symptoms strike. Experience the only formula approved and used by Dr. Peter McCullough, a top freedom-fighting doctor who risked it all during Fauci fascism. Head to twc.health/TPP and use that code TPP to get yourself $36 off plus free shipping. Again, it's twc.health/TPP. Use that code TPP. Get back to that pre-COVID feeling. And unfortunately, guys, for those who are not in the US, kits are only available for those who are in the US. I know people who swear by that stuff. I did not personally take the vaccine myself, but I do know people who use that product and swear by it, including people in positions of power. You know, who know. There was no way I was jabbing my son with that thing, although I can understand why you did with good intentions. But that study and others 100% back up the findings of our research, which we did over 6-month period, monthly for more than 6 months. Very clear relationship between age and the severity of adverse effects, including myocarditis, especially in boys. What do I mean by that? The younger you are, the higher likelihood that you experienced a severe adverse effect. In truth, the younger you are, the higher the likelihood that you experience any adverse effect. But severe, why does that matter? It means you did more harm to yourself using the vaccine than you would have been done to you had you just caught the virus. It's sad, actually. Very sad. All right, maybe we'll take the 30-second now because it's 12:41, because we do have one more to do, but yeah, let's take the 30-second now. I just don't know. I honestly don't know how there wasn't a single person in the White House willing to say this is a bad idea. I personally don't like it, but I don't like it regardless. I don't like it. That's my own opinion. But I do see what Bondi's saying. That is the standard. Is there an actual official act that you can point to and say, Qatar's giving this to us because I agreed to do that back? There's not. So, I mean, I could make one up, but there really isn't. Still, was it worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth stepping on the news that you are bringing home in? Is it worth stepping on the news that you got this deal, hatched out with the Chinese, or you're hatching it out? Is it worth, by the way, stepping on the stock market? Or the chances of a recession falling dramatically back down to 30%? Was it worth it? Those are all great headlines that you should be pushing and that you should want to see in the headlines all over the, all across the country, in the papers, on the websites, all across the country, consumed by people across the country. You don't want to see BS on social media and on news sites and on TV talking about this freaking plane. It's all you hear about. Why am I hearing more about a plane than a train filled with coke, by the way? I got a buddy who lives in France. I had to show him that video. You can't even see it. They have no idea that nobody's talking about it. I was like, no, bro, your president's on the plane with Merck's sniffing, bro, or whatever. Maybe not even sniffing. Well, there are people who zoomed in and are claiming they see cocaine on the face and noses and even nostril. Macron looks tweaked to me, guys. He looks like he's tweaking. All right, let's take a 30-second little countdown break. When we'll be back, there's something else again that is like again, instead of stepping on this, you want to talk about this, and you want Democrats to take the alternative position. Of course, there's always a bunch of stupid rhinos who help Democrats by criticizing the president, making it so it's even more confusing for the American people. Who supports what? Who's trustworthy? I can't bring myself to vote for a Republican. They do this every time. That's why. That's what people are thinking. All right, let's take that 30-second. We'll be back. My God, what another crummy day. The pool was beautiful. All right, the other thing I'm talking about. Oh, by the way, you're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, the best place to follow us is on Locals. You see it right there, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. You know what? We could just blow through the other one real quick, and we should. Let's do it again. It's back by popular demand. Yeah, and back by popular demand and back by me busting chops. That's what I'm doing. It is. I mean, there was like only a certain amount, and I was actually getting messages from people saying, "Is this gone?" And I'm like, we have to get more of these because people love them. And if you want to be successful on the show, you have to give people what they want. And they did, which is just incredible. All right. So 1775, I've got it up there right now. Brewing Rebellion, of course. I'm talking about the starter kits, all right, which I love. 1775 Coffee just dropped another starter kit. So you've been scared to commit. Don't worry. It's not vegan, it's not woke, and it won't ask for your pronouns. It's just coffee. You already know we back it. Now here's your excuse to try it. You're getting $200 worth of coffee and gear for just $99. That's a steal in a world where your local coffee shop is going to charge you $9 for burnt oat foam, and coffee prices are continuing to rise. You get 3 full-size bags of their best coffee, the bold dark roast, which I love, smooth medium roast, which is really much better than I anticipated, and their new anti-aging blend. Yep, coffee that actually tastes good and age better. Exclusive merch, a matte back tumbler stamped with an unapologetic freedom quote, and a gold spoon clip that keeps your coffee sealed, and a branded frother that does what it's told. All of it is single origin, small batch, mold free, toxin free, and every bag is rated 85 plus on the cupping scale, which puts it among the top specialty coffees in the world. If you've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com with the /TPP. Again, 1775coffee.com /TPP, and grab your starter kit before it's gone like they were last week. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that not only tastes great, but actually backs what you believe. Bought one my damn self. They send it. We love it. It gets crushed, and you just feel bad after a while. So you're like, you know what? I can spend my own money. Great product. Really is a great product. All right. Here's going to what I was talking about before. It's a big deal. It's big news. Let's listen to the president. All right. Any second now. There we go. Let's listen to the president. Let's scoot it back all the way back. Bang.
So what's been happening is we've been subsidizing other countries throughout the world, not just in Europe, throughout the world. European Union was the most difficult from what I understand. I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up and he said, President,
Fat
he
shot.
used to call me
Ozempic.
Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. Said, President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88.
So terrible.
And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked, and it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart. And we argued about it for about half hour. And then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. You got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit. It was just one of those things. And the other countries would set a price and they'd meet the price and they'd say, if you don't meet the price, you can't sell it in our country. I said, well, then you walk away and, they'll call you back and they'll sell it in the country. But now they'll have to do that. So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it. But in one way, you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, I remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Farmer has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. It's trade.
All right, so there it is. So what did I find funny about? What I find funny about this is simple. If you're as old as me, you remember. Whoops, I'm gonna remove him. If you're as old as me, then you remember that the roles have been totally reversed. And I was looking for this rhino, but the roles have been totally reversed when it comes to this. Democrats used to argue, and there have been Republicans who have tried to lower prescription drug costs. There have been. And there have been Republicans who have talked in the past. Michael Huckabee was one of them. Rick Santorum was another one. About how in the United States, drug companies appear to be able to sell products, same damn thing, at a higher price as Canadian counterparts and others abroad. Republicans used to say that if you do something like Donald Trump's executive order is going to do, Number one, it's not constitutional, right? Number two, it's going to stifle drug creation. And a couple of things to say about that. One is these guys are making drugs and they're making money hand over fist for these drugs for disorders that don't exist. They apparently have so much innovation and time on their hands and R&D capital that they're making drugs for disorders that we later find out are not real, right? And depression's a great example. ADHD is now in question, right? So maybe it's like government, and the less they do, the better. Maybe keep them focused on the things that really matter instead of having so much leeway and so much money to spend in R&D that they're coming up with the crazy stuff for that you've never heard of. I mean, it just we're making up the new disorders now just so that they can create a drug to treat those disorders. It's out of control. And then secondly, you ever notice that people who seem to care about the rights of like big corporations, like big pharma, they only care when that policy is geared at helping the little guy. Years ago, it was Democrats who wanted to do something like this, and Republicans who were definitely back then during the Bush era, the party of Wall Street. Bush did propose reducing the cost of prescription drugs, but in no way like this. He still kept the status quo. What they were talking about was subsidizing. So really just taking your money, giving it to the drug companies directly. So then the drug companies will have to reduce the price of those drugs by that amount to then sell to you. The double dipping. It's like a guarantee. They're just guaranteeing that the drug companies are paid at least a portion of your drugs by you anyway. It's crazy. This is not the same thing. This is a traditional Democrat policy. But now things are different. Of course, you have establishment people that are Republican, you know, and the old Bushy guard is still there. And Eric Erickson's one of them. He brought up, he did the same thing that so many of these other Republicans do, which is you're a corporate shill, right? You haven't had a client that's an actual politician, even though you're supposed to be a political consultant. You haven't been one of those for a very long time. You and like Frank Luntz and others, you take your money, Frank is a great example, from companies to then maybe you do real research for them and the world never sees it. Maybe you don't. And it's just the job description. Take money, conduct these fake focus groups, and then go all over the media, which are sponsored by these drug companies that are hiring these people to go on and talk about how people don't want this, right? What do they not want? Whatever's not good for the drug company, they don't want it. Pfizer, by the way, great example. Frank Luntz, it's just one of his biggest clients. How fair was it to you that somebody like that was running focus groups about COVID, right? And then going on, let's say, like a Fox News or a CBS, to then present the results of that focus group or interview them live, even though we have no methodology statement on how these people were selected and what their true background is. Is it verifiable that these are 6 registered Democrats, these are 6 registered Republicans? Like, you didn't do that. They've been caught multiple times. It's like, that's the producer's niece. That's the producer's wife. That's this politician's best friend. And oh, by the way, they work here. Scam. Production news, man. Production news. Those guys make the same argument. They couch these arguments in terms of the Constitution too, which really pisses me off. We could see the Constitution violated in favor of the big guy every day on a daily basis, and nobody says nothing. It's only when the little guy is the one who benefits, then it's all of a sudden a question of constitutionality. It's dishonest. The whole argument's disingenuous. The whole discourse, the whole political discourse on it is disingenuous. And now that Democrats, of course, are the party of Wall Street and corporate this and corporate that and big this and big that, from big media to big pharma and big war, now that they are the party aligned in the interest of those entities, all of a sudden, they care about the constitutionality of all this? Please. They don't care about the Constitution at all. It suits their needs. It suits their clients. It suits their benefactors. Has nothing to do with the Constitution. I wish they would just admit that. It would be, I probably could have more respect for them. All right. Man, it's already 2:59. But again, yet another story that I think is a big story, one that the public would absolutely appreciate, one that would give Trump good headlines, and instead it got stepped on a bit. It got stepped on a bit. All right. Yeah, I mean, we don't have to play it. It's probably a little too late anyway. I'll read you what they said. The drug lobby, this is Trump. The drug lobby is the strongest in the country. There it is, maybe except for lawyers. That's a powerful statement. And it's probably true. Nobody hired more lobbyists in the wake of COVID than Pfizer. They had an army of lobbyists that nobody's ever seen anything like it. They knew the pan was hot, and they struck. All right, 3:00 already. My God, really? Again, somebody, I'm just going to repeat this because I think it bears repeating before we go. Somebody has to tell the president, regardless of whether they think they're going to anger anybody, when doing something like this is just flatly stupid. It may make good business sense to you, Mr. President, but optically, you look like a hypocrite. You look like you're being bribed by Qatar for something. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Looks like shit. And with all the money we spend anyway, we don't need them to give us a 747. Tell Boeing to make one that's not going to fall out of the sky. We can afford our own 747. No strings attached. Such a stupid era. I'm sorry, it is. I really don't know how anyone could defend it. Because even if it is nothing, is that the full point? No. You once again stepped on your own. You pissed on your own head. Now you're telling everybody it's raining. Telling yourself it's raining. All right, you're watching Inside the Numbers, or you were and did watch Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget, all the links are in the description below. Book club, keep an eye on that, locals. I'm going to throw that up, I think, later today. If we can come to some agreed upon time or day to make something up, we'll try. I know it's very difficult for everybody, but it's worth me at least trying. All right. What else? You know what? If there's something else, you're going to know because I'm going to post it. Right? As always, thanks to the sponsors and those who support them because that's what supports the show. That's what makes the world go round. You can find us everywhere on YouTube, on Rumble, on Getter, on Truth, on X. But the best place to follow us is, of course, on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. peoplespundit.locals.com. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit. I hope it's not a rainy, crappy day over where you are like it is over here. Got to go get the kid from the bus stop. I'll bring a little booger and umbrella when I get there. All right, I'll see you guys.